Hello there, and welcome, wherever you may be. Let's begin with some aphorisms. Do not as others do. Come out from among them. Everything new is forbidden. I particularly like the last one, which comes from an Orthodox Jewish sect. On the weekend I took a trip to Hampshire, which is a rich countryside region in the south of England, where bankers who have made their millions retire to live quietly in large houses. And many of them remind me of the Anglo-Saxons of the old times. Tall people, ruddy people. I sat next to some of them at lunch. They seemed to me like giants from the old English countryside, quietly dying out. And whatever complaints I have about this country, surely they have far more, as they've been here for more than 1,000 years. And I was forced this week to listen to an automated robot from Al Rayyan Bank reading terms and conditions annoyingly through my headset. It felt like I was in some kind of mechanical prison, which reminded me of this passage by Gurdjieff. Everything living sets free at its death a certain amount of the energy that has animated it. This energy, or the souls of everything living, is attracted to the moon as though by a huge electromagnet, and brings to it the warmth and the life upon which its growth depends. The souls that go to the moon, possessing perhaps even a certain amount of consciousness and memory, find themselves under 96 laws in the conditions of mineral life, or to put it differently, in conditions from which there is no escape apart from a general evolution in immeasurably long planetary cycles. And there are parts of our life in the modern world that are beginning to look like that. I'll go slowly through this well-known passage between Ouspensky and Gurdjieff. How can one get rid of false ideas, I asked. We depend on the forms of our perception. False ideas are produced by the forms of our perception. G shook his head. Again, you speak of something different, he said. You speak of errors arising from perceptions, but I am not speaking of these. Within the limits of given perceptions, man can err more or less. As I have said before, man's chief delusion is his conviction that he can do. All people think that they can do. All people want to do. And the first question all people ask is what they are to do. But actually, nobody does anything and nobody can do anything. This is the first thing that must be understood. Everything happens. All that befalls a man, all that is done by him, all that comes from him, all this happens. And it happens in exactly the same way as rain falls as a result of a change in the temperature in the higher regions of the atmosphere, or as snow melts under the rays of the sun, or as dust rises with the wind. Man is a machine. All his deeds, actions, words, thoughts, feelings, convictions, opinions, and habits are the results of external influences, external impressions. Out of himself a man can produce not a single thought or a single action. Everything he says, does, thinks, feels, all this happens. Man cannot discover anything, invent anything. It all happens. To establish this fact for oneself, to understand it, to be convinced of its truth, means getting rid of 1,000 illusions about man, about his being creative and consciously organizing his own life, and so on. This is a famous passage, but I will think about it a little bit. What is it that people talk about? They talk about what they're going to do, what they want to do, just like the governments do. They talk about their plans and their problems and that they're working on them. Are they? Why don't they ever get solved then? Why have we got the same problems now as 1,000 years ago? Why doesn't anything ever get fucking fixed? As I've said before, to really see the problem is already to see the answer, because to see the problem means you can see what needs to be done, and human beings cannot see. They cannot see the question, they cannot see the problem. They do not comprehend themselves. Moreover, they do not notice. They just carry on like this. Carry on talking like, oh yes, we're working on a problem. You're not working on a problem. And that would come as a big shock to people. So what is the meaning of our situation? How can it be that we are alive, but that people cannot see clearly and are not really doing anything and are not solving their problems? How can that be? Well, it seems that the conditions of life on this planet are quite unusual, and that humans were brought into existence not to be independent beings necessarily, but to have a slight awareness. And when you speak to another person, it is like speaking to an animal, perhaps, that doesn't really have a lot of freedom of movement, who cannot really change what he is, but he has a slight awareness. That is what human beings are now. I think it's easy to see if you're on a busy high street and you see how the noise of a car will disturb the crowd and they will move and change their position and orientation, just like birds wheeling in the sky. Truly, often I wake up in the morning feeling quite good and content, and it slowly dawns on me which planet I live on and what I will see when I walk out of the door. Now there is a second passage here. It is said in some ancient teachings that on the day God created man, he also created for each man 2 spirits, the spirit of good and the spirit of evil, or as they are called, an angel and a devil, and placed the angel on the right of man and the devil on the left. Another ancient teaching says that when God sends spirits to work on the planets, the spirits ask God, "What shall we do there?" God divided the spirits according to their qualities and said, "You on the right will try to lead those who live there to heaven, and you, the other half, will try to lead them to hell." Then one of their leaders asked God about the means permissible to those on the one side and those on the other. God answered, "You can use any methods and means you like, but there is one essential difference. Let the weapon of those on the right be to do through doing, and the weapon of those on the left to do through it happens. The method of those on the right must be through what is active and conscious, and the method of those on the left through what is passive and unconscious." These 2 teachings to which I refer are ancient. At the same time, parallel with these teachings, there existed another religion, another teaching, and it still exists to this day. Here Gurdjieff defines what is good as being what is manifested from the will of a being struggling. That is the good. And what is evil is that which is caught by the passive mechanical process or the background process. And human beings, like all beings, are trying to emerge from a background process into their own line of will. People do talk about will and the use of will, the will to power, but they imagine that human beings have will already, and so the real situation is concealed from them. They imagine that they already have will and can do, but that is not the situation. Because being a human being, or any being, is not about expressing yourself. It is about becoming something through activity. Everything you do makes you, or has the possibility to make you, as you extend your force and will. There is work or your manifestation, but every time you do something, it affects your being, or the substance that holds your identity that is behind the manifestation. Now at the end, Gurdjieff talks about another religion, another teaching, which I assume is of a higher level, that may work directly with faith, hope, or love. Let's talk about some practical work. There are those who talk about the emptiness of the presence, of the mindlessness, of the non-duality. These people haven't got any technical knowledge whatsoever and are really just charlatans and cheapen the entire spiritual world. There are other people who are always positive and encouraging, and that's a sign of great shallowness, as the first step of any path is a confrontation with yourself and a kind of inner death, struggle, facing of one's wounds, and deep repentance. And people who are always happy and encouraging have no idea what the path is about. They have not faced themselves. Gurdjieff said that all beings, no matter which plane they're on, or which height in the great array of beings they exist on, they are always working on the integration of the three forces at their level. For that reason he talked about the three centers that were our main duty, the moving, emotional, and mental centers. Now there are some people out there who divide each center into three parts. For instance, the emotional part of the moving center, the intellectual part of the moving center, the moving part of the moving center, and some divide them even further into the emotional part of the intellectual part of the moving center, and so on. And they say it's very interesting. It's very interesting because you can just divide them and divide them and divide them. These people are the false self. They're just like sheep in a field who are looking at a blade of grass saying, that's very interesting, I can divide that into three parts. There's the top part of the blade of grass, the middle part of the blade of grass, and the bottom part. Also very interesting. These people have no connection whatsoever with their real identity or with spirituality. So there are three categories of unhappiness. Most of the work I do is based on traditional methods and ancient teachings. But when I was walking in Hampshire this weekend, I did do some of the separation exercises. Walking, I separate first into the moving center for a few minutes, then into the emotional center, then into the director. If you observe your body moving, that may be useful, but that's not the moving center. The moving center work begins when you can feel the location inside your body of the mind that is moving, the gate. And the true work is when you can feel it from the inside. And it is the same with the emotional center. If you can observe your emotions, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm warm, I'm cold, that is external. You need to experience the location and the mind that is causing that. And the real yogic work starts when you can feel it from the inside. If you have done advanced work, then you can then go into the higher bodies. The astral body, same principles. The mental body is developed through formal sitting meditation. Perhaps there are other methods to do it. On the weekend after I had done those things, I sensed the presence of a large person in the shadows, which may be something to do with the fourth body. As you work with the centers, of course, you must release all the parasited energy from the emotional and sexual centers, so that each center functions alone and is cleaned out and then reunified in the triad. I was considering when you're on a horse and you say, "Whoa!" and the horse slows down. What is happening there? Why does the horse slow down? What does that word or emanation mean? Okay, I think that's it for this week. You all take care, have a lovely week.
Surrounded by sand, for as far as my eyes can see, I'm strapped into a rocking chair with a blanket all over my knees. I am a stranger to myself, and nobody knows I'm here. When I looked into my face, it wasn't myself I'd seen, but who I tried to be. Perpetual greed and turn all of my friends into enemies, and now the past has returned.